Welcome to the 7-8 podcast,
where falling down isn't failure
and getting back up is the secret to life. What's up, everybody? Michael Johnson here with the 7-8 podcast. I'm excited that you joined me today for this solo episode, just you and me and a nice conversation. Today, I wanted to chat with you a little bit about having one of those days. Have you ever had one of those days? You know what I'm talking about. One of those days that is just not right. In fact, maybe if you're like me, you've had one of those months or maybe even one of those years, and it has kicked your trash. It has beaten up on you. And sometimes you're in those moments and you wonder, how the heck am I going to get back up from this? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll jump right in.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Business Choreography System. If you're an expert educator or entertainer trying to grow your business online, but you feel like you're missing a few key steps, this system was built for you. It's the Lego set of business growth. We give you the pieces, the plan, and the playbook so you can finally choreograph a business you're proud of. Learn more at createmyimpact.com. Now, back to the show.
So there we were. Everything was going great in the world, right? And then this pandemic hit, this global scare that got everybody's attention from the tip top of the world to the bottom. And we were all forced to pay attention. And so many of us have some interesting stories about that time. I know I do. And, well, we won't go through all of those stories right now. One of the things that happened to me during that time was particularly eye-catching. In hindsight, hindsight fixes all things, right? So in hindsight, I'm thankful for what happened and what went down. But during the time, I was not so thankful. Towards the back end of the pandemic, I got really sick, and I was stubborn and didn't want to go to the doctor because I don't do that, right? I don't need to go to I'll just tough it out. And finally, after about 3 weeks, I decided, hey, I'm gonna go to the doctor, right? Maybe I've got whatever the bug was, right? So I go to the doctor after being absolutely hammered for a few weeks already, and the doctor couldn't find anything. They said, well, it's not what the pandemic is. It's not what that is all about. And I said, well, what can I do? And he said, nothing. And I said, so you're telling me you don't know what's wrong with me? That's what you're supposed to be able to do. And he said, no, I got nothing. So why don't you wait a couple more weeks and see if you feel better? And what ended up feeling like probably the better part of 2 months, I had just been knocked on my booty. And during that time, I spent a lot of time in bed, spent a lot of time reflecting on life, and a lot of time in a lot of weird states. And I don't know if any of you guys have felt this way. And when you're sick, of course, when you don't have your health, your mind goes all over the place. And as I look back, I remember laying in bed, and you go through all of the scenarios. You go through the why me scenario. What did I do to deserve this? I'm a good guy. I work hard. I get up early. I go to bed late. I play hard. I give everything I can when I can. And I do the best that I can do. So why me? Why? And of course, as you ask those questions in those times, you're only going to get bad answers. And when you ask, what did I do to deserve this? Of course, when you ask a question, your mind is an interesting machine. It will find an answer. And if you ask that question multiple times, your mind will go on a journey to find the answer. Why? Because you're asking it over and over again. And of course, I found all sorts of very poor answers. And of course, as you lay there, you think, gosh, I'm a mess, right? Like I don't feel good. I can't be up and out of bed for more than 5-10 minutes without being exhausted. And on and on and on, right? And so you go into this continual loop of pain. And it wasn't just that I was sick, and it wasn't just that I felt bad physically. It was that internally, mentally, I was beating up on myself. And because mentally I was beating up on myself, it's so funny how your body participates, your body, your mind, your soul. And of course, my soul jumped in to the mix and started beating up on me too. So now emotionally, I'm beating up on myself. Mentally, I'm beating up on myself. Physically, my body's beating me up. And it just provided this crazy sick loop. And I mean sick in a number of different ways. And during that 2 months, I just remember thinking, how is this ever going to be different? Like the doctor doesn't even know what's wrong with me. Like it's not the pandemic thing, right? We won't say the C word, right? But it wasn't that. And so now what? Now I'm left with not knowing. I don't even know if that's better or worse. At least if I'd had, what everybody else got, at least I'd have known. At least I had an idea that was what was going on. But this wasn't getting any better. And holy cow. And during that time, some of the training early on kicked in, some of my past training on having a great mentality, some of that kicked in. But when it starts to wear down on you week and week and the next week and the next week, and you're just like, how is this lasting? How am I going to make this through? And you keep asking bad questions. Have any of you been there before? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's just bad and you think, oh, I can endure this for a couple days. And then it's bad for a week. And then you're like, I can endure this for a week. And then it's bad for like 2 weeks. And you're like, that's okay. I can endure this for 2 weeks. And a month goes by and you think, how in the world am I going to endure this? Little by little, I got my wits back about me. My body got tired of being sick, I think. And I started to feel a little bit better. And as I did, I started to evaluate what was really going on with my body. Like, how could my body be that sick? And the doctor not know what was going on, what was wrong. And I didn't like that. And so for the first time in terms of my physicality, I made the decision to get back up. And it was a hard decision. And I don't know how other to explain it than from the time I was 5 years old till I had retired from my professional ballroom dance career. I had been in great shape. I had always been an athlete. I had always been able to do feats with my body that others couldn't do. I once danced in a pro-am competition and won the best or top teacher award during this competition. And I must have danced every day, all day long. And people were like, how are you doing that? Like, how did you make it through that? And I don't know, honestly. I look back at some of those times and I honestly don't know how I made it through. But I was in physically great shape, and I always was. And here I was now in this moment in physically horrible shape. And not only that, but on top of it, my soul was crushed and my mind was in circles. Because, of course, whatever you think about, you're going to get. Whatever you focus on, you're going to receive. And if I ask bad questions, I'm going to get bad answers. And that's exactly what was happening. I was getting these horrible answers to these horrible questions, but I wasn't asking any of the questions I needed to be asking. And it wasn't until I started to get a little bit better and started to get a little bit physically tired of being sick that I started asking some better questions. And luckily, some of the training and some of the education that I had started to get clearer to me. My mind started to get less foggy. And what I want to share with you today is that the things I started doing, because it's easy to say, just get back up, just come on, get back up. But physically, I couldn't quite do it at the time. And mentally, I was so unprepared for that moment of being physically, emotionally, and mentally sick. And as I started to claw my way back out and I made the decision to get back up, I started to remember some of my training. That's what I want to share with you today. Because again, it's easy to say get back up, and I fear that in this progression of the 7-8 podcast, I fear that there might not be always enough substance. Mostly, I don't want it to be that we're just telling you to get back up with no actual connection to those moments where you're down and you don't have the strength and you don't have the will to get back up. And I need to make sure that as we proceed with this podcast and with these 7-8 stories that we're going to share with you, I want to make sure that I also provide you with some tools and some things that you can use to help you fight through those moments. Because when your body, mind, and soul are all fighting against you, it is hard to get back up. It is hard to make that choice. It is hard. Literally, you might not be physically ready to get back up, and you might have beaten yourself up, and you might have your mind, body, and soul all against you in those moments. And the first step and the first moment is about choosing to get back up. And that moment, I hope that the podcast is here. I hope you can listen to a story or this episode or any of the episodes, and it might just give you the courage to say, yeah, I'm ready to get back up. So here's a couple of things that as I started to gain my wherewithal, that I started to do. And again, I thank my mentors and I thank some of the people that trained me before. And I wish I had been strong enough to remember that earlier. Maybe I wouldn't have been sick for as long as I was. But maybe it was necessary. I don't know. So here are some practical suggestions. When you're down, when you've been beaten down, when you've had one of those days, one of those months, one of those years, and you feel like, man, how am I going to proceed? How am I going to even choose to get back up? Here's what you do. First thing you have to think about and start to be aware of is you have to start to look at the questions that you're asking yourself. I know that sounds funny and it's a strange scenario, but just hang with me for just a second. What are some of the questions that you ask yourself? And if you're in that space right now, this is perfect. I want you to try it. What am I asking myself? Well, Michael, I can't think of that right now. Okay, that's okay. We'll just install it right now. And in those darker moments, you're going to say something. You're going to ask yourself a question, and I need you to counter it and say, why am I asking that question? Why am I asking that thing right now? Because if you can start to get in the way of that question, you might be able to start asking a new question. You see, I was saying, why me? Why am I sick? What did I do to deserve this, to deserve being sick? That's a very poor question because, of course, your mind is going to find the answers. Now, on the other side, what I started to do is when I recognized that I was asking a question that wasn't good, I started saying, well, what do I have to do to get healthy? And that's a small shift. And when you're tired and you're worn down and you're not feeling good, that is a hard question to ask. And I don't know why it's so hard. Yes, we could unpack that and analyze it, but let's not. But it is hard. And you know it's hard, and I know it's hard. But I started asking, what do I have to do to get healthy? And I started to look at my habits. And since being a professional athlete, I had kind of deteriorated. I started eating crap. I started drinking too much soda. I started not taking care of my body. I certainly wasn't working out because before I was dancing hours and hours and hours and hours and doing a lot, right? I was buzzing around everywhere, right? But I wasn't taking care of my physical body. So I thought and started asking the question, what do I have to do to be healthy? Because then as I got more back into sane mind again, and as I started asking that question, I started feeling better because I started looking at things that I needed to do. So I started drinking some more water. That was it, a simple thing. I started drinking some more water, and that led me to going, okay, well, I need to get whatever's in my body out. So let's do some kind of a detox, something or other. Okay, well, maybe I've got to change my diet. And then the worst thing ever happened for me. Pro athlete, always dancing, never had to work out because I was always physically in good shape. I asked the question, do I need to like work out and like do something like to take care of my physical body? And I don't, you guys listening might chuckle or laugh and think, well, duh, of course you do. But for me, I hadn't put that in my world. I didn't get up and work out. I was going to dance all day. That was my workout, and it kept me in great shape. So, what happened? Started looking at it and going, oh my gosh, I'm like everybody else. No, I'm not like everybody else, right? And so I came to grips with the fact that I had to start figuring out a workout. But I looked at it and I'd never been successful at working out, not since the early days of my pro career where I had a trainer. And the trainer was governing my workout specifically for what I was doing athletically. So I thought, well, what am I good at? Oh, now see, there's another good question. What am I good at? Well, I'm good at being tenacious. I'm good at really putting things together and keeping them going. Man, I start something and I'll keep it going. I will keep it moving. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put together something that I can sustain because if I put together a workout that I can't sustain and I can't make it past a couple weeks, then it's not going to do me any good and it's going to be a failed attempt. Then I said, well, what do I have to do? Well, let's start off with easy. We'll just go with calisthenics and I'll do something that I know I can easily attain. And let's set a goal. My first goal was I'm going to work out 5 days a week for a year. And that was it. No missing. If I missed a day, I had to make it up that week. It left me 2 days every week that I could do a makeup. And whether I was sick, whether I was healthy, whether I was on vacation, whether I had work, whether I had play, it didn't matter. I wasn't going to miss. But I made the workout in a way that I could slowly increase, but I wasn't putting myself in a position where I wouldn't do it. So I started asking better questions. And then I thought, okay, what's going on? Like, how come mentally I couldn't do that? I was trained to be able to understand the mind and the soul. I was mentally trained to do this. I'm a master NLP practitioner. Like, how could this have beaten me? And so then I thought, okay, what do I have to do to build a resilient mind? That's a good question. Not why is this beating me? Not why me? Oh, everybody feels sorry for me. Like that, those were bad questions. So I thought, okay, what can I do with that? How can I get and build my resilient mind? So I decided, okay, I'm going to read every morning. I'm going to pick a book. I'm going to read every morning, like actually have the book in hand. Now, over the years, I got so addicted to it after that I started wanting to go faster. So then I'd get an audiobook and the book, and I would start flying and trying to get through as much as I could because I got so addicted to the knowledge and to the education. Right. But it all started with those early questions of like, how can I not let my mind get the best of me? And the best way I know to do it is to stand on the shoulders of giants, those people that have come before me that have put their life's work into a book that I can read in a few days and be able to assimilate their life's work and their life's passion and be able to benefit from their greatness. And what I found is as I did this, I also had another question. How can I get my soul? How can I get better control of my emotions? And when I say control, I don't mean that you don't have emotions. I mean control in regards to being able to utilize your emotions. They are assets. Your emotions are tools for you, not in spite of you. And they're not against you unless you don't learn how to utilize them. And so I started asking better questions. And I hope you see the theme here. Yeah, I know some of you have had one of those years, some of you have had one of those decades, and I totally get it. I totally get it. But you can make the choice. And sometimes it doesn't mean that you're just going to instantly be standing up again. Sometimes while you have been knocked down, you have to make the choice that you're just going to get up. And when are you going to do that? Maybe I can't get up now, but tomorrow morning I'm going to get up. And that might just mean that you're going to go for a walk. It might just mean that you're going to drink some more water. It might just mean that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to add some meditation to my day if that's your jam. I know I did. That was one of the things I added to my day because I knew I had to gain some control over my soul. And so I added that and it made a difference. It made a big difference for me. Now, I don't know if it will for you, but if it does, cool. If it doesn't, at least start asking the good question. What can I do that will help me become better in whatever it is that you're working on getting better at? You see, getting back up, that's the statement. That's the declaration. That's the impetus to not stay down anymore. And that's what I wish for you. If you're in a down space, if you're in the fall now, awesome. Wait, what? Awesome? Yeah, awesome. That means you can make the choice to get back up and start asking better questions. And that's what I want to request of you today. I want to cordially invite you to start asking better questions. And the best way to ask better questions is to start to identify some of your crappy questions. This is a kid friendly show, so I couldn't say it the other way. But listen, your questions you might not notice are crappy. So as you ask yourself or you find yourself contemplating over a cup of tea or a mocha jaka lava whatever drink you're drinking from your favorite coffee shop, and you catch yourself asking a question, write it down, because in that moment you might not be able to actually recognize it's a bad question. But if you just take a couple seconds, type it into your phone, write it down on a piece of paper or a note card. I keep them with me all the time. I actually like to write things down. But write those questions down and maybe look at it the next day and see if the question sucked. And you may have heard this, but I'll repeat it again. If you ask a bad question, you'll get a bad answer. If you ask a good question, the likelihood of a good answer coming back is pretty good. So I'd like you to really consider, as you are working to get back up, part of it is the questions, and that will start to create an impetus, because we've got to have some tools. We've got to have some tools to be able to use them to help us. Now, if you feel yourself heading down to a fall, this is a great way to interrupt it before you hit the bottom. You might be able to ramp back up again and not end up at the bottom of the wave. And that would be cool, right? And for those of you that aren't at the bottom and you're looking at that going, yeah, I've had those moments. I've talked to so many of you in the comments, and you guys have been replying back and letting us know that you love the podcast, and we appreciate you for that. Thank you so much. But some of you that aren't in the down recognize that there are downs. It's par for the course. It's what comes with the territory of life. This is what life is about. We have some ups, we have some downs. The downs make us stronger. The ups allow us to enjoy the downs. So if you're in the top of the wave, recognize that there's a likelihood you might actually end up at the other end of the wave. And put this away, store this away for later. I have to challenge the questions I'm asking myself. Those questions are so important. And start now. If you're at the top of the wave, start now installing good questions. How can I be healthier today? How can I be more in control of my emotional state today? How can I be and live more passionately? How can I spend more time doing what I love, making lots of money with it? Right? Whatever the question is, let's ask some really great questions. I'd love to hear some of your questions. So put them in the comments if you'd like. That's totally fine. Or send them our way. I'd love to hear them. Some of the good questions, or maybe some of the bad questions you've asked and how you're changing them. That would be great. Sometimes it helps to just put it out there. And if that'll help you, then put it out there. I'd love to see it. Guys, sometimes it's just one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those months, one of those years. Sometimes that's just how it is. It's part of the wonderful, beautiful experience of life. We have to learn over time to ride those waves and keep asking better questions. And remember that the first step when you're in that fall, when you're at the bottom of the wave, is just to choose to get back up. Doesn't mean you're going to make it all the way up at that one moment, but just choose to get back up and then start to take a look at your questions. I hope this episode has helped you today. And I'm so grateful that you guys have come to listen to the 7-8 podcast. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share it with them. Give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, wherever you're listening or watching the podcast. And if you didn't know, we're on YouTube as well, so you can watch the podcast. But that would help. And it would help some other people in the world as well that need to hear this message today. Thank you so much for joining me. Look forward to another episode, maybe a solo episode from Lexi as well, and some more 7-8 stories coming your way. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care, and don't forget, 7-8.
Thanks for being with us today on 7-8, where falling isn't failure and getting back up is just the beginning. If today's episode reminded you of your own journey, if you've fallen and gotten back up again, maybe more times than you can count, we want to hear your 7-8 story. Head to 7eight.life to share your comeback with us. That's SevenEight.life. Your story could be featured on a future episode or inspire someone who needs it most. And while you're there, check out the official 7-8 gear. Every piece was designed to remind you and the world what resilience really looks like. Fall 7, rise 8, repeat. We'll see you next time.